She just wanted to get some water from the river, but was suddenly caught in a crocodile's deadly grip. Her wealthy fiancé, the cowardly Archibald, couldn't save her, but fate brought her to Cole, a lone cowboy who came to her rescue. Only by finding out what happened next will you understand why this story of love, passion, and betrayal shocked the entire Wild West. Stay tuned. At the end, you'll learn what awaits each of us when life presents its trials. Like and subscribe, and watch this story to the end, because its climax will not only surprise you but also give you wisdom that can be applied to our modern life. The scent of parched earth mixed with the aroma of blooming wild poppies, scorched by the merciless sun. The place where the Sabine River curved was known locally as the Devil's Jaws. Dark, murky waters that held a danger everyone knew about, but few truly believed in until the very end. Emma, a young woman from Virginia who had arrived in Texas with her father, considered all these stories to be mere tales meant to scare newcomers. They had a small plot of land that she loved more than anything in the world. Now, at noon, she was cheerfully wading into the cool water to fetch a bucket for watering. Her father, old Jim, sat on the porch of their new house, wiping dust from a rifle. He called out to her, "Emma, be careful. There's nothing in that water but trouble, Dad. There's nothing here that could scare me." Emma replied, her smile unwavering. She was a strong, determined woman, used to relying on herself. Her thin, light sundress seemed dazzlingly white against the backdrop of the green water. Emma took a couple more steps, wading deeper into the river. Suddenly, she felt something hard and rough touch her ankle. She yelped in surprise. Must be just a snag, she thought, but the next sensation was completely different. A strong, iron grip. At first, she thought it was a fish, but when she was jerked sharply downward, and the bucket clattered into the water, Emma knew it wasn't. She didn't scream because her throat was seized with terror, but because her lungs filled with water, and she could no longer breathe. On the bank, a scream was heard. It wasn't Emma's scream. It was Jim's. "Alligator! Crocodile! Emma! Hold on!" But Emma couldn't hear him. She was already underwater, her hair swirling around her, her eyes filled with fear. She was being pulled down with incredible force, and she felt her body go numb from the cold. She tried to break free, but the grip was too strong. She felt as if her body would be torn apart, and her mind was already saying goodbye to life. At that very moment, when all hope was lost, a tall man emerged from the bushes, wearing a tattered leather vest and a pair of revolvers hanging from his belt. His broad chest was bare, and his straw-colored hair waved in the wind. This was Cole, known locally as the Lone Cowboy because he always kept to himself. He saw what was happening and, without hesitation, plunged into the water. He didn't scream.
I ask you to like and subscribe to the channel, so you will help me in motivation to make such great stories for you, and I will see that you like them. Enjoy watching, everyone.
He acted quickly and decisively. He pulled out his knife and lunged at the crocodile, which was already about to drag Emma to the bottom. Emma felt the grip loosen, but her consciousness was almost gone. She saw the silhouette of the man fighting the monster, and at that moment, she felt something she couldn't explain. An incredible compassion for this stranger who, risking his own life, was saving hers. She felt him plunge the knife into the crocodile's scales, felt it jerk in pain and release her. She could barely feel her body, only the cold and the weight, but at that moment, he caught her. Cole pulled her out of the water, and his strong hands squeezed her shoulders as he held her close. Her cough was hoarse, and she spat out the water that had held her underwater for so long. He gently laid her on the bank, and then rushed back to the crocodile, which was ready to attack again. Jim, who had been frozen in shock all this time, finally found the strength to shoot the animal, forcing it to retreat. Emma slowly came to. She looked at the man. In her eyes, there was no gratitude, but something else. She saw him as her savior, but she also felt that this was not just a rescue. It was the beginning of something more, something that would change her life forever. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Emma's wounds healed slowly, but they were emotional, not physical. She could no longer look at the river without her heart clenching in terror. Cole, the lone cowboy, as everyone called him, came every day, first to make sure she was okay, then to bring her game and fish. At first, Emma was cautious, but his silent, yet powerful presence, his deep gray eyes that held no pity or curiosity, but only calm, quickly won her trust. Emma's father, old Jim, also grew fond of him, although he didn't show it, only occasionally nodding to Cole in thanks. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of scarlet and gold, Cole sat on the porch next to Emma. She gathered her courage and asked, "Why did you save me?" "I'm nothing to you." He looked her straight in the eye and replied, "You were in trouble. There's no other reason needed." His words were simple, yet they held such truth that Emma felt her heart begin to thaw. She started to learn his story piece by piece. He was a former crocodile hunter who had once lost his brother in that very river, and that had become the reason for his reclusive life. He lived in a small cabin in the mountains, far from people, because he couldn't find the strength to forgive himself for not saving his brother. He felt guilty, and that guilt drove him away from people, away from any relationships. Emma, in turn, was engaged to a wealthy merchant from Virginia, Archibald, who was supposed to come for her. She had come to Texas with her father not by choice, but because her family had gone bankrupt, and marriage to Archibald was the only way to save her father from financial ruin. She had never loved Archibald, but she felt it was her duty to her family. But after Cole's rescue, she began to have doubts. She felt an intrigue that grew with each passing day. A mysterious, silent man who risked his life for her. What made him do it? Her compassion for him grew. 2 months later, Archibald arrived. He was a portly, tall man with puffy eyes and a thin, unpleasant smile. He was the complete opposite of Cole. His clothes were expensive, but they lacked the strength that emanated from Cole. He was greedy and selfish and couldn't understand why Emma didn't want to go back to Virginia. "What are you doing in this hole?" he asked Emma. She replied, "I found peace here." He didn't understand her. To him, it was just a wild place where he could take Emma and bring her with him to marry her. He was so focused on his goal that he didn't notice how much Emma had changed. She was no longer the obedient girl who had once agreed to marry him. She had become stronger. One day, Archibald saw Cole returning to his cabin, and his heart filled with jealousy. He couldn't understand why this dirty, unkempt cowboy was spending so much time with his fiancée. He hired 2 thugs to teach Cole a lesson and make him leave, but they, knowing his reputation, refused. So he decided to act on his own. He bribed one of the sheriff's deputies to tell Cole that Emma was in danger. He knew Cole would come to her aid. Meanwhile, Emma and Cole were sitting by the river, talking about life. She told him about her fears, her love for the wilderness, her dream of building her own ranch there. He listened without interrupting, and it seemed to him that he was hearing not just words, but music. He felt his heart, which had been closed for many years, begin to beat again. And at that moment, at the most tender moment, when they were so close to each other, he heard a scream he would never forget, a scream that belonged to him. The scream Cole heard was his own scream, but from the past. It echoed somewhere in the distance in the mountains, and Cole knew something terrible had happened. He couldn't understand what exactly, but he knew he had to go. He looked at Emma, and in his eyes, there was a plea. He wanted to stay with her, but the feeling of duty and guilt made him go. He said, "I have to go. I'll be back." And he ran away, without looking back. Emma was in utter confusion. She didn't understand what was happening. She felt her heart tearing apart. She loved this man. She couldn't let him go. She ran after him, but he was faster. She shouted after him, but he didn't hear. She was in despair. She was ready to die of fear that she would never see him again. Meanwhile, Cole ran towards his cabin. When he arrived, a surprise awaited him. There was no one there, only Archibald, who stood with a smirk on his face. "Hello, cowboy," he said. "You think you can take my fiancée? You're mistaken." Cole realized he had been tricked. He didn't scream. He acted quickly. He lunged at Archibald, but he was ready. He shot him, and Cole fell to the ground, bleeding. "You think you can save her? You're mistaken," Archibald said. Cole was terrified. He didn't understand why he had done this. He didn't understand what he had done wrong. He just wanted to help. He just wanted to live. At that moment, he felt his body go numb with pain. He saw Archibald walking towards him to finish what he started. He knew he would die. But he didn't give up. He found the strength to get up. Emma, who was running after Cole, saw it all. She was in shock. She couldn't believe her fiancé could do such a thing. She was furious. She rushed at Archibald, who, taken by surprise, retreated. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "You can't do this." But Emma wasn't listening. She picked up the pistol that lay on the ground and shot him. Archibald fell. Emma ran to Cole. He was lying there, bleeding. She didn't know what to do. She was in despair. She couldn't believe she had killed a man. She couldn't believe Cole was dying. She took his hand and said, "You won't die. I'll save you." And she started to pray. She prayed like never before. She asked God to save him because she couldn't live without him. Cole felt his body begin to revive. He felt the pain leave. He felt her hands tremble. He looked at her, and in her eyes, there was no fear, no guilt, but only love. He realized that she had saved him. She had saved him from death. She had saved him from himself. He looked at Archibald, who was lying on the ground, and in his eyes, there was no pity, no anger, but only calm. He realized that he had found his peace. Several months later, Emma and Cole sat on the porch of their new home, not the one by the river, but the one they built together, on a hilltop with a view of the entire valley. Far below, in the Devil's Jaws, the old legends were replaced by a new one. The legend of the girl who was saved by a crocodile, and the cowboy who became her husband. After the day Emma saved Cole, their lives changed forever. Cole, wounded and exhausted, was taken to town where he was helped. Emma told the sheriff the truth. Archibald, though a wealthy man, could not escape justice. His motives were clear, and Emma, though she killed him, was acquitted. In those times, in the Wild West, justice was simple and swift, and self-defense was a respected reason. Emma and Cole started living together. They didn't have a grand wedding. Their wedding was simple, quiet, with no extra witnesses. Emma's father, Jim, was happy. He saw his daughter blossom, become stronger, and find her happiness. Cole, in turn, discovered a new life. He was no longer the lone cowboy. He had found a home and a family. He stopped blaming himself for his brother's death. He realized that his rescue of Emma was not just a coincidence, but a sign. A sign that his past was not a punishment, but a lesson. They built a ranch together. He was a strong, hard-working man, and she was his support, his strength. She taught him to trust, and he taught her to be strong. They were two halves that found each other in the most unexpected circumstances. They were happy. In the evening, as the sun was setting, Emma and Cole sat on the porch, holding each other. She asked him, "Did you ever regret saving me?" He smiled and replied, "I only regret one thing, that I didn't do it sooner." Their story is not just a story of love and salvation. It's a story about how life can change at any moment. That sometimes the most terrible events in our lives can lead to the most unexpected and happy outcomes, and that even in the wildest and most dangerous places, love and kindness can find their way. A lesson from the story for the modern world. The lesson we can learn from this story, simple but important, especially for people who have already lived a long life. Sometimes, in our lives, we encounter crocodiles. They can be illnesses, difficulties, the loss of loved ones. They drag us underwater, and it seems to us that we will never be able to surface. We think our life is over, that there is no hope. But, like Emma, we can always find our cowboy. It could be our family, friends, a doctor, or just a stranger who will lend us a hand. And sometimes, our cowboy is ourselves. It's our strength, our will to live. And, like Cole, we must learn to forgive ourselves for the mistakes of the past. He blamed himself for his brother's death, but by saving Emma, he realized that his past was not a punishment, but a lesson. He became stronger, he became wiser, and he found happiness because he was ready to accept it. This story teaches us that in any, even the most hopeless situation, there is always hope. That life can be cruel, but it always gives us a second chance. And that the most important thing in life is not what we lost, but what we found. It's love, it's friendship, it's faith in ourselves and in others. And that is what we can pass on to our children and grandchildren.